I did not watch any of it. I was away on a trip. I think one of my buddies had it on his phone, but we didn't want to pay for it. So
Yeah. So you didn't see any highlights. You obviously seen who won. Do you have an opinion on it at all or no?
I mean, Jake's a pretty good boxer. Nate's a MMA fighter. I don't know if he's ever really been known for his knockout power. So, I mean, Jake was a minus 600 betting favorite. It always seemed like he was going to win, but no, I didn't ever really have any big interest in it, no.
Was he really minus 600?
Yeah, Nate Diaz before the fight was floating between plus 320 and plus 400.
Holy hell. So if you thought Nate was going to win, there was good value, but I wasn't thinking Nate was going to win.
Yeah, I didn't think Nate was going to win either, but I put $20 on him and a 20% profit boost that I had. So I was like, see what happens just in case.
Yeah, I mean, those odds are too good, but.
Yeah, Jake pieced him up.
Yeah, I mean, literally, after the first round, I'm like, there's no way Jake loses this unless he gets caught. So, we're back. Little week hiatus. Mostly my fault. I had some work stuff going on. Just wasn't going to work out. Brett had a vacation. I'm on vacation next week. We're all kind of like, all messed up. But here we are, AFC South. We already took your polls last week. So if you put those in, we appreciate you. I don't think there was many fan questions, but we'll look at those later. This is not really highly regarded division, but I think there is some meat on the bone here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that everybody is clearly going to probably favor the Jags. I think that the Titans are being – I mean, I haven't looked into their schedule yet, but just thoughts early, I think they're being overlooked. And I know we kind of been pooping on them, and any NFC team has been playing them. We've kind of been like, well, it's just the Titans. But, yeah, I think this is a fun division when you have all these three or four teams that, in division, they're always playing each other tough. But definitely, I think the worst division in the AFC.
Yeah, I think, first off, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk, Jeff Brad. The one thing that I think we need to put out there is when we did the entire NFC, DeAndre Hopkins was yet to be a Titan.
True.
And neither of us have Tennessee moving to be Super Bowl favorites, but I personally think it moves the needle a little bit.
On a week-to-week basis, they're a much more difficult team offensively to game plan against because of the addition of DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, it definitely moved the needle a little bit. It made their number one wide receiver, who I think everybody in the league now realizes wasn't a number one wide receiver, move to a 2, and DeAndre's now your number 1. All of a sudden, you're a little bit better. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which is what DeAndre told every team. He goes, when you sign me, your wide receiver 2 becomes a wide receiver 1. Your wide receiver 3 becomes a wide receiver 2. Your wide receiver 4, and so on and so forth. He's like, because I get the number 1 corner. So basically, these guys start to elevate themselves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited to talk about the Titans. Obviously, it's kind of like always been my secret team I root for on this podcast, that and the Panthers for whatever reason, but totally down the Panthers. Let's talk Texans. Not really sure what to make of the Texans, but here we go. 2022, they were 3-13-1. And every single one of their victories came in division. They were 3-2-1 in division. So not bad as far as competing inside the division. They actually won their last game of the year, which is kind of funny. But outside division, they couldn't beat anybody. What do you have for ads, drops, draft? Take it away.
Okay, so for ads and drops, I was thinking about going through and potentially picking out the ones I felt were notable. But I want to do this if you give me a minute or two, because this is an entirely different team. And when I say that, this is what I mean. These are their additions, not through the draft. Quarterback Case Keenum, running back Devin Singletary, running back Mike Boone, fullback Andrew Beck, wide receiver Robert Woods, wide receiver Noah Brown, wide receiver Steven Sims, tight end Dalton Schultz, tight end Eric Tomlinson, tackle Greg Little, guard Shaq Mason, center Michael Dieter, defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle Hassan Ridgeway, linebacker Denzel Perriman, linebacker Corey Littleton, linebacker Jermaine Carter, corner Shaq Griffin, corner Darius Phillips, safety Jimmy Ward. Then in the draft, they get quarterback C.J. Stroud, defensive end Will Anderson Jr. They get a center, a wide receiver, a linebacker, and 2 linebackers, one of them being middle linebacker Henry Tuoto from Alabama. So those are all the additions to the Houston Texans. They've really hit every spot with a lot of names.
Not to mention their first-round pick last year, John Mechie. Wasn't he first round? Mechie?
Yeah, John Mechie, yeah, wide receiver, yep.
Didn't play a single down, not because of injury, but because of health, cancer, leukemia. He is now, to my knowledge, full go. So that's another ad in a way.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of these like Robert Woods, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. I mean, Shaq Mason and Michael Dieter and Greg Little, all 3 guys who have started in the NFL. I just think Shaq Griffin was the best corner for the Jaguars last year. They add him to the Stingley Jr., Derek Stingley Jr. And not to jump the gun, but this team was already 11th against the pass in the NFL last year. But we'll get to their key departures because there is a lot there too. They lose quarterback Jeff Driscoll and Kyle Allen. We already talked about how they added Stroud and Case Keenum. They lose Royce Freeman, running back. They lose Brandon Cooks. Probably that might be their biggest loss, Brandon Cooks. Wide receiver Chris Moore, Philip Dorsett, tight end Jordan Atkins, tight end O.J. Howard. They lose 2 guards, 2 defensive ends, 3 linebackers, and a corner and a safety. So they have a lot of stuff moving out, but a lot moving in, and I think a lot of those spots are upgrades. So I do think this team is fixing to be better, but it is tough when you talk about rookie head coach paired with rookie quarterback. There is room to be skeptical there for sure.
Yeah, I think when you have rookie quarterback and rookie head coach and your season last year was 3 wins, there's a chance that they win 2 or 3 games this year again, but they are improved. Like that's on the table. And as a football fan, you need to be able to see the difference. Like, does this team, Colin says this all the time, is this team going to have an identity by Thanksgiving? Because if they do and they win 2 or 3 games, you could honestly say to yourself, this is an improved team. They're very young. I mean, literally, C.J. Stroud, Mechie III, Anderson Jr., Stingley Jr., They love those picks. They love those draft picks. They've spent a lot of capital on those guys. Matter of fact, they don't even have a first-round pick next year because they moved up to get Will Anderson. Like, they believe in this squad. They believe in the head coach they hired. The Texans are interesting because when you really look at their depth chart, there's some dudes. You talked about all the ads. This, as far as tackles go, they have great tackles. I mean, Tunsil's as good as they come. They just signed Howard. I think he's now hurt, though, even after signing that deal just like 2 days ago. But Nico Collins is up and coming, big physical receiver. Robert Woods has been around for a million years. Mechie obviously coming back from his health scare. Dalton Schultz, they have pieces here. The running game is going to be interesting because Dameon Pierce, after drafting him last year, they felt good about him. He had spurts. I think the Texans like what they have. It's not Super Bowl worthy, but they got to like their pieces here.
Yeah, and you look at maybe even a third guy, Tank Dell at wide receiver, who we all heard that story. You know, C.J. Stroud works out with the guy. They go through a lot of things at the combine. C.J. Stroud gets drafted and says, hey, like, in one of the next 2 days, could you try and maybe get Tank Dell? I believe he's from Houston. Yeah. Houston wide receiver. So it's like they draft him for C.J. Stroud. So I think offensively there will be some growing pains with an entirely young team, but Nico Collins with a big body and Robert Woods, those are 2 blocking receivers who aren't afraid to do stuff out on the perimeter. To be able to get Dalton Schultz, I mean, with what he was able to do at the Cowboys last year, you could even almost look at him as your veteran wide receiver presence along with Robert Woods. I do think this team will like to run the ball with Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, but man, you just start to look at the defense and Derek Stingley Jr., Steven Nelson, and Shaq Griffin as your 3 corners. You add Jimmy Ward at the safety spot, Christian Kirksey, and you add Denzel Perriman to the linebackers. You have Sheldon Rankins and now Will Anderson Jr., who everybody thought might be like pound for pound the best player in the draft. So this team should have a bit better of a pass rush. you look inside division, and they're going to be playing against Ryan Tannehill and Anthony Richardson, which we don't think are world beaters in terms of a passing perspective. So I think the Houston Texans are going to be a team that, I again haven't done schedule yet, but I believe this could be a team that could potentially double their wins. Again, that's 6-11. That's 6-11. I mean, they're going to lose twice as many games as they win if that's the case, but I do think it's possible.
Yeah, I'm intrigued because when you look down the depth chart, the guys that are coming in second string, they have pieces. And before we move on, I do want to talk about big friend of the pod, Davis Mills, Dougie Mills, if you will. Where do you see Davis Mills' QB future in the NFL? Is it here in Houston just as a backup? Do they move on from him? Is it somebody gets a hurt quarterback late in the year and they make a trade with the Texans for Davis Mills? Give me a prediction. I know we're a prediction-based pod and we like Dougie Mills.
I think Davis Mills is going to turn out somewhere like a Taylor Heineke. Like, he's just going to pop up on teams throughout the next 5 or 6 years, good enough to hold a roster spot. If the starter gets hurt, maybe he comes in. Potentially he wins 3 or 4 games and then move around. I don't think he'll ever be a starter in the NFL, but I don't ever think, if he doesn't give up like mentally, I don't think there's ever going to be like a team that can say they have a second and third string quarterback to carry that are better than Davis Mills.
Yeah, I just have a really tough time. Not necessarily, I'm not saying you're giving up on him, but like through 2 years in the NFL, he's his first year was great. He was damn near 67% completion, 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 10 picks. Last year he played more games, 61%, 3,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, 15 picks. So he still threw a ton of picks, but overall in his NFL career, just shy of 64%, 33 touchdowns, 25 picks. That feels like a winning quarterback in this league.
I just think, and of course that they can improve, but the amount of turnovers he throws in the position he's in right now, I just think with every year how many quarterbacks continue to come into the NFL and how many good ones we have now, the positions become so competitive. And to be a guy who throws a high volume interceptions and doesn't have the like athletic quality to get things done with your feet, it's just going to be a tough. Yeah, it's just going to be a tough spot for him to be a starter. But I do think he's good enough to play. If you were on a team that felt good about your starting quarterback and Davis Mills as a backup, it's kind of like Gardner Minshew or Taylor Heineke. It's like with the Eagles last year, I said, part of the reason I think the Eagles will be so good is if Jalen gets hurt, Gardner Minshew is a serviceable backup who can win you games. Turns out he didn't. But I just think that's Davis Mills' role. Gardner Minshew, Taylor Heineke. I think that's kind of the bracket I would put him in. Could be a starter, but I think he's a backup. But while we're on the topic of quarterbacks, I did want to say, I spent plenty of time when I was watching or talking about the Panthers about how I just didn't really believe that in Bryce Young that much, and that's why I'm low on the Panthers. I did think C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback in this draft. I do believe a little bit in C.J. Stroud. I think he has a better chance to succeed as well, and I like his pieces. So as we keep an eye on the whole C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young 1 and 2 in the league, I like C.J. Stroud, and they play each other in Week 8 this year.
That's fun. Go ahead and take away the schedule.
All right, the Houston Texans. They start off with a pretty easy starter game, one to get momentum. They're at the Baltimore Ravens.
It's tough. That's an L.
They're going to lose that game, I think. But just to feed scenarios, imagine if the Texans win that game. Like, the whole narrative for the whole rest of the year changes. Whether they still play bad and win 6 games, they're going to be held to this weird thing if in week 1 they come out with all this energy, a new team, young team, and somehow beat Lamar Jackson. That would just be crazy. But I'm going to give it as a loss. They then host the Indianapolis Colts.
They're hosting the Colts. Colts are a mess right now.
They tied and beat the Colts last year, and the game that they beat them, it was by 1 point.
Yeah, I still like the Texans here. This is one of their wins.
Okay. Let me go back to the schedule. I wanted to see what they did to the Colts this year. Okay, so I have it as a win as well, 1-1, as they travel to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville is going to be the leader of this division here. Spoiler, Jacksonville at home, I like them to win. That's a loss for the Texans, 1-2.
I will say I do think the Jaguars are the favorites to win the division, but I think the Jaguars are a much more passing team, and the Texans are definitely built to defend that. And Jacksonville was not good on defense last year, so I really think Jacksonville was 28th against the pass and lost Shaq Griffin. I'm going to give the Jaguars a win, but oof. They then host the Pittsburgh Steelers.
No, they're dropping to 1-3 here.
They are at the Atlanta Falcons. I have them losing to the Steelers as well. They're then at the Falcons.
At the Falcons. Falcons win.
I like the Texans here. Little change of heart on the Falcons. Again, I like the Falcons. Or the Texans here. They then host the New Orleans Saints.
I wish we could completely redo the NFC South. I have had way more information come to light. This is a loss, though. Saints win. 1-5 to start the year for the Texans.
I'll put it at 2 wins, so I have them at 2-6. But I think that Falcons Saints, I think they get one of them. But Alvin Kamara is back by then too. So they then go into an early bye week 7. They come out of the bye week 8 for CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, but it is at the Panthers.
I think the Texans are better.
I think
the
so
Texans.
Too.
I'm at 2-5.
They then host Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Remember, you can't run on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Can't run.
Yeah, I mean, as bad as I'm down on Tampa, Tampa has a lot of championship pedigree on that team still, and they're not dead in the water. I think Tampa's better. I'm going to give Tampa the win.
I'll give it to Tampa. They then follow Tampa up with at the Bengals.
Joe Burrow or no Joe Burrow, I think the Bengals win this game.
Okay, they then go on a 3-game home stretch. They host the Arizona Cardinals. Week 11 could be Kyler Murray back time, but I like them to beat the Cardinals.
The Cardinals are so bad. Give me the Texans.
They then host the Jaguars. I'm gonna have them splitting with the Jags. Remember, this team was 3-2-1 in division. I think they're better this year. Division games get crazy.
It's a loss for me.
Okay. They then finish their homestand with hosting the Denver Broncos.
This also feels like a loss. I have them at 3-9 right now.
3-9, so 12 games. I have them at 5-7. They are then at the New York Jets.
No, I think the Jets win this too. 3-10.
Back-to-back road spot, December 17th at the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, at the Titans. Titans. Here's the thing about it. We'll talk about the Titans in a minute. I'm not going to go into it. Titans win this game.
I agree. They are then at home Christmas Eve against the Cleveland Browns. I like Cleveland.
Deshaun Watson comes back to Houston. Houston rallies. Give me Houston for their 4th win. That's a Super Bowl of sorts for them. They need that win.
I'm going to take the Browns. They then have back-to-back home spot where for the second time in 3 weeks they play the Titans.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry runs for 300 yards on the Titans. Just mark it. I mean, he does it every time they play him.
Yeah, I can't give them. I'm struggling to give them divisional wins. I know they won 3 last year, but I'm struggling here. I give them another loss.
I know it's a long time in the whole season, but rookie head coach, rookie quarterback versus Mike Vrabel. I just think Mike Vrabel's too good.
Yeah, I agree.
They then finished January 7th at the Indianapolis Colts. I'm gonna give them their final win there.
CJ Stroud has no idea what it's like to play in Indianapolis. This feels like a loss, honestly. I'm kidding. I'll give him the W.
I see what you did there.
I just had to take it.
Yeah,
One last shot.
Absolutely. What'd you finish on them?
Yeah, I got him at 5-12, and honestly, I feel incredible about that.
I forgot to make my last page of notes here, so give me a second.
I had no idea I was giving them 5 wins, and I feel great about the 5 wins. I think their Vegas is 4.5. That's my prediction.
You had them at 5-12.
I'm at 5-12.
I have them at 6-11. And what'd you say you think their over under is?
Is it 4.5?
No.
I can't see it higher. Is it lower? Is it 3.5?
No.
Is it 6.5? I'm gonna jump 5.5.
It is 6.5.
I'm sorry. That feels like
6-11
automatic.
Tremendous improvement, and they would double their wins and still be the under. That I did think that was crazy.
I can't see them getting 7 wins. Like, I don't even envision that possible. I feel like I gave them 5 wins. I don't want to say like I made ways for them to get 5 wins, but I do think I was nice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's some games that I gave them a loss that may be more winnable because I really do think I like their roster a lot. It's just sometimes when you think about, like, they start off with Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, and then they play Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, and then they play, Mike Tomlin, and then they play, like they just play a lot of experienced coaches early. I don't know. I think they're a fun team to watch, and a lot of people would be dismissing the Texans before the season. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch.
They're 1,000% more entertaining and more interesting than they were ever at any point in the last 3 years. Since Deshaun Watson has said, I'm no longer interested in being your quarterback, this is the most interesting they've ever been. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
Literally 2 seconds. All right, maybe it was 4 seconds, but still. Left my drink over there.
Yeah, so Texans, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Tell you what, off the top of my head, I don't think they're going to be last in the division.
Okay. You ready to talk about the next team?
What was the next team, Jeff?
The next team is your Indianapolis Colts, with the record of last year coming in at 4-12-1. They're tied with the Texans. We just spoke about that. In division, they were atrocious, 1-4-1, and they lost their last 7 games. In the offseason, we'll let Brad talk about the adds and drops here in a second, but just recently, with all the running back debate, yada, 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 if you're unaware and maybe don't follow the NFL offseason storylines, basically Jonathan Taylor is pretty vocal. He's in the last year of his deal because he was a second-round pick. He's looking to get paid after this season. Jim Irsay publicly says that these running backs have no argument to stand on, basically trying to renegotiate the CBA in season. And after having a brief conversation, Jonathan Taylor tells Jim Irsay he wants to be traded. So arguably the Colts' best player. He's definitely top 3, I would imagine. There's only 2 more that even remotely come to mind. We'll talk about those guys in a minute. Interesting storyline. Take away the ads, take away the drops, take away the draft. Take it away.
Ads. So backup quarterback Gardner Minshew. They add wide receiver depth with Isaiah McKenzie and Brashard Perriman, tight end Farrell Brown, and a defensive end Samson Ebukam, and kicker Matt Gay. Their additions through the draft: quarterback Anthony Richardson from Florida, corner Julius Brents, wide receiver Josh Downs, tackle Blake Freeland, D-end, corner, safety, tight end, running back, kind of a bunch of misfit no names that just add depth to a bunch of positions. Their key departures: they lose quarterback Matt Ryan, wide receiver Paris Campbell, offensive tackle Dennis Kelly, tackle Matt Pryor, big-time defensive end Yannick Ngakoue, big-time linebacker Bobby Okereke, big-time corner Stephon Gilmore, also another corner Brandon, I don't know how to say the last name, safety Rodney McLeod, kicker Chase McLaughlin, and punter Matt Hack. So they have new kickers this year, and they lose a big piece at every level of their defense. That was 12th against the pass and 21st against the rush last year in terms of yards allowed. So a mediocre defense got weaker. They got a rookie head coach and rookie quarterback, and their owner is in the middle of a public battle with their best offensive player outside of Quentin Nelson, who's left guard. So what do you have to say about that?
I think this is the worst roster in football.
It's not good.
Yeah. Couple of years ago, why many of us on Saturday afternoon were having a fantasy football draft, Andrew Luck decided to retire immediately following a preseason game.
I have to interrupt you because I say it every time. I picked Andrew Luck in my draft. The next guy had not selected yet, and ESPN came up on our phones that Andrew Luck retired in the middle of a preseason game. It hadn't even gotten to the next guy's selection. He was on the clock after I drafted Andrew Luck. So it's just I always have to say that. Sorry,
it's wild. I mean, so here's the thing with that though. This team, I don't want to say the words they got better, but they were decently competitive for the next 2 or 3 years because they had a very good offensive line, solid defensive pieces. They made the playoffs with Rivers. They made the playoffs even just not last year, but 2 years ago. Okay. I don't know what happened. This team is really bad. They have no offensive wide receivers. Michael Pittman Jr. is their best wide receiver, and I'm not sure he's starting on a lot of teams. This is the worst wide receiving core in the entire league. This is the worst offensive pieces in the entire league. And if Jonathan Taylor doesn't take it down, it's all-time bad. Anthony Richardson, if that truly is the week 1 starter, I'm not sure what he's working with. Josh Downs, wide receiver, North Carolina. He's 5'9", 170 pounds. Better be fast. What are we asking of these guys? Defensive pieces. I mean, Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner. I mean, those are their guys. You kind of got to build around those two. I don't know. I just don't love this team. I mean, I think they have 3 very good players: Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, and probably Taylor. Those are their 4 best players. Taylor is in a dispute. I don't love this team. I think they're ass.
So I want to push back a little bit. Not too much on the fact that I don't think they will be good or that they had the crazy fall. But I do want to push back on offense a little bit. I do think Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are number 2 receivers in the league. I don't think either of them are ones. I think both of those guys are in like a Juju Smith-Schuster category. I think their big body receivers don't separate much, which is tough to ask of a quarterback who isn't built on accuracy. I think Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie are nice speed slot style receivers to pick up, but those aren't guys that are going to carry your team. I think with Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods, they have some big body tight ends. So with the big tight ends that can catch and block, I think with Shane Steichen's scheme and how they're going to move Anthony Richardson, I do think they will get more out of him with this team and this scheme than a lot of people would. With that being said, the offensive line that has Ryan Kelly and Quentin Nelson, who are former All-Pros, the offensive line was in shambles last year and couldn't block anybody, and they haven't really done anything to improve it. Offensively, I feel like this team is somewhere between 16th and 32nd. They're in the bottom half offensively. Where I really start to fall apart on this team is I think defensively they're awful. I think so. I see a confused look. What I'm saying, Jeff, is on their best day, they're still not a top half of the league on offense. That's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily.
They're not a top 25 on their best day.
I think they okay. So we can disagree on that. That's fine. But defensively, Shaq Leonard had last year was having like surgery on like losing feeling in his foot because of stuff up in his back, and like they're optimistic he's going to play. He was a defensive player of the year candidate 2 years ago, and he's had these injuries that threaten to see if he's ever going to be able to play really meaningful football in the NFL ever again. They have DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye on the D line, but everybody else is pedestrian. They paid Kenny Moore a lot of money at corner, but he's a slot corner. Their perimeter corners are suspect on both sides. Teams are going to eat that up. Their safeties, I mean, Julian Blackman, who was out of Utah a few years ago, was good, but he's been injured every other year, or every year pretty much for different portions of games. I think teams are going to have not much problem running on this team, and they're going to find passing on this team easy, which is going to require them to score a lot of points to be in games, which I don't think they have the ability to do. Again, I thought personally, and I mean, we disagree. I think Jeff was a little harsh on the offense, but I also agree. I'm not going to stick my neck out and say that this offense is great or even that good. Anthony Richardson, a lot of people say, well, he can help cover up some of the issues of the offensive line with his ability to run. And it's like, okay, so Anthony Richardson has never played in the NFL. There is a higher speed from defensive players than there was at the college level. And Anthony Richardson was 9th in QBR against, like, under pressure. He was 9th in the NCAA. Or excuse me, no, just the SEC. Like, this guy isn't built to beat pressure. Like, he's 9th in the SEC. Like, that's just crazy to me that people think that this whole Anthony Richardson project, I think, with Shane Steichen, I think is just being a little disrespectful to Jalen Hurts. People think that because of Shane Steichen, Anthony Richardson can just do what Jalen Hurts did, and it's just not the case. This team's going to struggle every week to win games. I don't know if I'm going to have them winning many.
The weird thing is I just listened to you go on a spiel, and I feel like you said the exact same thing, but you just wanted to dial it back on how nice you wanted to be. This team's ass. They're not good.
Yeah, I just felt like you were like overboard on like saying Michael Pittman wouldn't even make some rosters and
No. I didn't say he wouldn't make rosters. I'm not sure who he would start for as far as like he's not a top 2 on a lot of people's. Real quick, just to defend my Michael Pittman statement.
Sure.
He caught 99 balls. 99. Do you think he was a 1,000-yard receiver? I'll give you a hint. He wasn't.
By the way, a fun little prop bet. A lot of teams, if you go on FanDuel, they have like players for the whole season or even for teams. Michael Pittman is over under 75.5 catches this year. I don't think he's getting to 75 catches with this offense, this quarterback.
I think he might because he only catches like 6-yard balls.
Yeah, but his
yards per catch is 9.3. His longest catch of the year is 28 yards, Brad. He's not a deep. He's literally just he's 6'4" and he's a slot receiver.
I do want to say also last year, Matt Ryan was a statue and their offensive line was awful. Like their wide receivers didn't even have time to run routes. Like that offense, they were 32nd in offensive touchdowns last year. Like the team was miserable to watch. Awful offensive line, quarterback. Now Anthony Richardson can move. So there's going to be some spectacular plays, and they're going to be an easier team to watch. That does not mean they're going to be better. But I'm just saying I like a lot of these pieces on offense. I think they need a better O-line. I don't believe in their quarterback at all. I like some of their skill guys. I like the wide receiver, tight end, and running back, kind of like their groups. I personally do. But they're still mid-tier with, as far as I can see, no quarterback and I think a bottom 10 easily, probably bottom 5 defense next year in the NFL. So the team's not good. We agree on that. I just, Yeah, I guess maybe he's right. Maybe you guys are listening. Maybe it's just me being nicer, but neither of us think that the Colts really have much of a chance this year.
Take the schedule away. Let's see how many wins they get.
All right, so week 1 they are at home versus the Jaguars. We already said Jaguars are going to take that one.
Yeah.
Week 2 they're at Houston. We already gave Houston that win.
Yep.
It's a back-to-back road spot. They're at the Baltimore Ravens.
Loss.
They then come back home for a 2-game homestand where they play the Rams, then the Titans. Rams, I think early in the season, I do have predictions on injuries for this team, but not this early. Still like the Rams. Sean McVay versus Shane Steichen. And then hosting the Titans. I like Titans. They don't have any corner to match up with D-Hop, no run defense.
Yeah, I got them at 0-5.
I do too. They then are at Jacksonville.
No, they haven't won in Jacksonville in like 9 years. Yeah, no, it's a loss.
They then host the Cleveland Browns.
It's a loss.
Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith. We already talked about how AR struggles under pressure. They host the New Orleans Saints.
Loss.
At the Panthers.
I'm going to give them a win.
I'm not. They're then
they're not better than the Panthers. I just want to make that clear. But they're not going in a 17-game schedule. They're not losing every single game.
And then they're in Germany versus the Patriots on the following Sunday.
Yeah, they're getting their ass beat.
So with that being said, Jeff has them at 1-9. I have them at 0-10. Maybe I should give them a win somewhere. But
don't even. I thought you were about to give it against the Patriots.
No.
Listen to you,
I have it 0-10. But I do want to say I have this reference point. I could check it on FanDuel, but the Colts are plus 1,800 to be the last team to win a game. Plus 1,800. And again, we said Jacksonville at Houston. That could be one where people are like, well, that's the one or whatever. But then it's Ravens.
Time out. I want to make something very clear. If I bet $100,
you would win 1,800.
They just have to be the last team to win a game.
They have to be the last team with 0 wins. So they're at Houston.
Holy hell.
At Ravens, host Rams, Titans, Jags, Browns, Saints. Week 2 and week 9 are the real only games that people feel are winnable with this team, and they're both on the road. So it depends on what you think about the Texans, but if you are interested, $10 to win 180 to toss it on Colts being the last remaining team to not have a win. You also got to go peek at the Cardinals, what you think about them and this and that. But just a thought. So that's the bye week, week 11. They come out of the bye week and they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Loss.
They're then at the Titans.
Loss.
At the Bengals.
Loss.
Host the Steelers.
Loss.
Okay, so this is kind of fucked, but Jeff has them at 1-14, and I have them at 1-13.
1-13.
And I have them at 0-14. I do not see a win. I just don't see a win for this team.
Yeah, I had to give them a win versus the Panthers.
Now I know a lot of people are like, Brad, they beat the Chiefs. It's the NFL. Okay, I could sit here and say that they should win 3 or 4 because they're an NFL team, but I'm not going to predict it on here. I just can't. But their last 3, I'll give them all at one shot. At Falcons, host Raiders, host Texans.
At Falcons, host Raiders, at Texans.
Host Texans. They end on 2-game homes.
Yeah, there's a bazillion losses there. Truthfully, I may have overstated the Falcons. So here's where I am at. I believe this is a 1-win team. Chalk it up against the Falcons late or the Panthers middle of the schedule. Don't really give a shit, but that's their win. I think they're a 1-win team. This feels like a 1-16 football
team. I don't know where I'm putting it, and I know that's kind of shatty, but I'm giving them 2 wins. I don't know where they're coming. I don't like the Raiders at all. They host the Texans late in the year. They play the Panthers. They're gonna get 2 wins somewhere. I don't know where they're at. I got them at 2-15.
Yeah, Jeff. What's their over under?
Three and a half?
No.
It's higher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it 5.5?
Higher. It's 6.5. It's the same as
No, it's not.
It's 6.5. It's the
No,
same.
it is not.
And they have a higher divisional at plus 550 to win the division.
For all you YouTube watchers that love to comment about how me and Brad don't watch the games and we're just our trash ass football takes that copy off ESPN, hit me up, and I want you to literally tell me what games they're winning. If you're listening to this pod, be like, Jeff, you're overthinking this. Like, here's where they win. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it. I would also like you to almost tell me who you think the quarterback is from week, like in these victories.
ESPN has Gardner Minshew right now as the number one.
I'm looking at it. I know.
It's wild.
I know. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I think they're so bad. I think there's a cross-country chance, non-conference road game in a far time zone. I think there's a shot week 4 they beat the Rams. Again, with the coach and quarterback at least being veterans, I like the Titans over this team. Jags are simply better. The Browns better. The Saints, dome team to dome team. Derek Carr, I just think they're better. They're not beating Bill Belichick in Germany. They play the Bengals on the road, the Falcons on the road. They host the Steelers, Tampa. Like, again, we talked about how they don't have perimeter corners. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin still play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, I just, again, and like we talked about last year, you said that they won 3, they were 4-12.
Yeah.
Let's look at their wins. The absolute debacle we talked about with the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat them last second. Patrick Mahomes had like 4 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
They did beat the Titans. I think the Titans are now better. They beat the Denver Broncos Thursday night 12-9. We all say
make sure you talk about the score there.
Yeah, 12-9.
It was a horrible game.
They beat the Jaguars, which is actually really shocking. But again, we talked about the Jaguars losing a corner briefly. They might have a worse secondary, and they played against Matt Ryan, who threw for 389 yards. They do not have that kind of quarterback ability anymore. And then later in the year, they finished the year, you said 7-0. They finished it 1-10.
0-7.
Or 0-7, but they really finished it 1-11. Actually, they were this team was 3-2-1 and finished 4-12-1. So they ended 1-11, and their one win at the Raiders, which I gave them 2 wins late, and one of them is at the Raiders again. So I mean,
one of their problems I want to talk about briefly, through their first 2, 4, 6, 7 games, they were 3-1. Those were all started by Matt Ryan. And then all of a sudden they go through some quarterback issues. So the first 7 were all Matt Ryan. Then it's Ellinger, Ryan, Foles, Ellinger. Like they were all over the place. Injuries and benching dudes and hiring
Jeff Saturday,
high school football coaches, and I don't want to disrespect the player because he's a great player, but they hired a high school football coach and just inserted him because they thought all of a sudden he's a leader of men.
We've talked about some other teams. We've talked about the Bears, who were bad and we expect to get better. We talked earlier in this pod about the Houston Texans and how we think they're going to get better. This is a team that won 4 games, downgraded at quarterback, has a rookie head coach, and maybe they didn't downgrade because he's a rookie, who knows, but they downgraded they have a rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, and a significantly worse defense. In a division that I think the Titans are better than they were last year, the Texans are better than they were last year, and the Jags, we'll get to them in a minute, but the Jaguars, after their bye week, finished 6-1 with Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, and the whole crew coming back. So I just think in a division that everyone's getting a little bit better and finding their stuff, owners in the papers, rookie head coach, star players in the papers, losing defensive players. The Colts are on pace to be one of the first 5 picks in the NFL next year.
Yeah.
And watch this team feel like we believe in Anthony Richardson and trade somebody the pick for one of these top QBs.
We didn't even talk about it either, but they also gave up the largest comeback in the history of the NFL last year as well.
Yeah, to the Vikings, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah, and again, that one win against the Raiders was the everybody get up for Jeff Saturday game where it was like bound for the Raiders to drop it like that. I mean,
yeah.
So
yeah.
Oof.
I'm ready to talk about the Titans.
I'm ready to just stop talking about the Colts.
Yeah, that too. So if you tuned into the AFC South, we're 45 minutes deep, and I think we've done both teams justice. Whether you like the opinion or not, we've gone deeper on these teams than I thought we could have. Okay. Texans, we think they're bad, but improved. Colts, we think they're bad, but bad. Just straight bad. Yeah. I'm ready for the Titans if you're ready.
Tennessee Titans, let's go.
Tennessee Titans finished last year, 2022, 7-10, 3-3 in division. Here's where it gets rough. They were 7-3 at one point, and they lost their last 7 games. So, not great. Tennessee is a team I've always really liked. This is a team that traded A.J. Brown 2 years ago during the draft. Or, I'm sorry, a year and a half ago during the draft. And after A.J. Brown just did them in last year, they fired their GM right then and there, right after the game. So this is a team that's still kind of building back up from what they've lost, moving around, still trying to find that magic they had in 2019 where they reached the AFC title game. Go ahead and take away the ad drops.
Okay. So additions, wide receiver Chris Moore. They get a tackle, Andre Dillard from the Eagles. I know he wasn't a starter, but go ahead and look up the Eagles tackles. Defensive end Arden Key, which is a big replacement for Bud Dupree. Linebacker Aziz Al-Shahir. Linebacker Ben Neiman, Luke Gifford, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' best corner, Sean Murphy-Bunting. Then in the draft, they get Peter Skronsky from Northwestern, quarterback Will Levis, running back Tajay Spears, and tight end Josh Weil. I don't know if we'll talk about those other 2 guys, but Will Levis, Peter Skronsky, those are pretty big names. Key departures, Josh Dobbs, QB, Dontrell Hillard, running back. They lose Robert Woods and Austin Hooper. Taylor Lewan, I believe he retired, right?
That is not official at this
Still
point.
A free agent, though?
Yeah.
Taylor Lewan, guard Nate Davis, center Ben Jones, center Corey Levin. They lose Bud Dupree, DeMarcus Walker, Zach Cunningham, safety Andrew Adams, and longtime kicker Randy Bullock.
Yeah. Yeah, this team's going to have some trouble on the offensive line, but everywhere else, I think they're just okay. And I think they're well coached. They have some vets on this team. They have a couple of different than the Colts. They have some dudes. I love Derek, obviously. Definitely in the back half of his career, but can still be Derek. D-Hop, still that guy, I think. He has that in him. Traylon Burks, I don't know about you. I mean, he's not a 1, but I think he could be a 2. I think we'll see a little bit of that. Jeff Simmons, dog. Kevin Bird, dog. Harold Landry, as long as he's healthy, obviously towards ACL before the season started last year, right? It was at midseason.
Yeah, 12 sacks the year before, and then ACL for the year last year.
Yeah, I think Landry's a dog if he can get back to his self. They have some pieces here. Murphy Bunting, solid corner. I mean, he's no lockdown, but he's a good corner, Super Bowl champion. Yeah, I think there's some pieces here, and I love the coaching staff.
Yeah, I also look at I don't like to give out fantasy advice all the time, but tight end Nkonkwo, I think he's going to be a rising star.
Yeah, I think there's something there, especially because they use their tight ends in Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill likes the tight end. There's something there. I do agree.
Yeah, he kind of came on late last year and athletic guy. But Ryan Tannehill, Mike Vrabel, I just think that offensively there's a wide receiver that you have to double team and a running back you feel you need 8 in the box to stop. You only have one defender left now. Like I don't.
Yeah.
You only,
Yeah.
So
It's a good way. It's a good way to put it.
there's mismatches everywhere because their top two guys are at different positions, and they are. I mean, Derrick Henry's been arguably the best running back in the league for 4 or 5 straight years. D-Hop, people always want to forget because he spent a year away with the Cardinals or two and just kind of wasn't the same. But I mean, he's played with quarterbacks of Ryan Tannehill's caliber the whole time. People sleep on Ryan Tannehill's athleticism. I like their receivers, Traylon Burke being the second receiver. I like that. Andre Dillard and Peter Skoronski, I think their one side of the line is definitely improved, which is Tannehill's blind side. But just because you reshuffle the O-line around with new names doesn't mean it's going to improve, but I think it will. But defensively, I think adding Sean Murphy Bunting, the corner, is huge because the Titans were 32nd in the league against the pass. So adding a pass rusher of Harold Landry, the third's caliber, double-digit sack guy, and then a guy on the back end and Sean Murphy Bunting, I expect that to improve. On the flip side, just in terms of maybe a defense, you just don't know the names so they don't get the appreciation. But we know Jeffrey Simmons up front, but this defense allowed the least amount of yards running the football in the entire NFL last year, number 1 in the entire NFL. So they were on both ends of the spectrum defensively. But if they clean up that pass defense, Harold Landry, Sean Murphy Bunting start to be able to kind of, secure games or defend leads when they get them. I still think Mike Vrabel's the top, off the top of my head, maybe top 8 coach, top 10 coach for sure. He's a coach of the year. So you have a coach like that. Last year they trade A.J. Brown. They have to fire their GM or head of the team. Like they had all that internal arguments. But I think they're coming in a little more flown under the radar. But this is a team that I think 7 wins is always going to be their floor. I don't know what they are in the playoffs. I don't know what they are in the playoffs, but in the regular season, the Titans from week to week, they give you hell every time you play. And Mike Vrabel always has his team prepared, and they always play hard. I didn't look at it before, but I just wanted to go look at their losses to see how close, like a lot of these losses are to end the season. 4-point loss, 3-point loss, 5-point loss, 4-point loss. A lot of 1-possession games here in their losses. So they're in every game.
Well, let me point out real quick. So I just pointed this out for the Colts. I feel like I have to do it here. Let me just give you their quarterbacks throughout the whole year. Tannehill, Willis, Tannehill, Willis, Dobbs. They started 3 different quarterbacks as well. And Tannehill, for the first 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 games, started all but 2. Okay, and they were 7-3. He was honestly 7-2 in starts. Tannehill was. It wasn't until late in that season where they just started to kind of fall apart. But losses to, these are damn good teams. Let me just give you their losses at the end of the year: Bengals, Eagles, Jacksonville, Chargers. That's 4 straight playoff teams. You start to lose yourself.
Yeah, then they bench Tannehill after that.
Yeah, they benched Tannehill, and then you lose to Houston. Tannehill probably would have beat Houston. Then they lose to Dallas, great team. Then they lose to Jacksonville again. Literally, in the last 7 games, they played 6 playoff teams. You can't destroy them.
Yeah, their schedule is bound to be easier this year. And Mike Vrabel seems to beat bad teams. He beat the Raiders. He beat the Colts twice. He beat Washington. He beat the Texans. Even when he beat the Texans the first time, Willis wasn't even playing. He beat Denver. He beat Green Bay, which still had Aaron Rodgers. But it's like Mike Vrabel can beat a lot of teams. But like you said, they start to lose their identity. They lose 4 straight to playoff teams. and it just kind of went downhill for them. They basically throw away their last 3 games to see what their backup quarterbacks kind of look like. The loss to Dallas, I mean, Hassan Haskins led their team in rushing with 40 yards. Like, I don't even think Derrick Henry played. So this team, the ending of their season, I believe, will give you a false identity to who they're going to be week in, week out of this next season. And like I pointed out, think about a defensive coordinator going into his room. We got to double this receiver, and if we don't have at least 7 in the box, they have a mismatch, and then Tannehill can move. Remember, he was a wide receiver in college, and he's not known for like his jukes and stuff, but like you give him a gap as a straight line runner, he can pick up first downs, extend drives. There's not going to be, I think, off the top of my head, you can't tell me 3 teams that are going to be more difficult to stop inside the 7-yard line than the Tennessee Titans. So, we'll have to get into their schedule, and when we do, I suppose I'll say that I expect them to win more games than maybe I did 4 or 5 weeks ago.
No, one last thing. In their first 6 games, they had a different guy lead them in receiving every week. How many do you think had 100 yards?
I don't have it in front of me. You said 6 games. I'll say 3.
0.
Oof.
So their leading receivers, 66, 47, 85, 38, 72, 56, 26,
and they're winning those
48.
games.
They were winning some of these games. You're right. That's what's wild. And then finally to get their first 100-yard receiver at week 9, 119 yards. They only had 2 the whole year. 100 yards in a single game.
It was back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, back-to-back weeks. And they won those games. They won those games.
You talk about quarterbacks. These are their highest receivers per game. Phillips, Burks, Woods, and Nkonkwo, Westbrook, Hooper. First 6 games, all a different receiver leading the team in yards. Then it's Woods, Nkonkwo, Westbrook, Burks, Derrick Henry, Nkonkwo, Hooper, Derrick Henry, Woods, Burks, and Nkonkwo. But again, you hear Nkonkwo a few times. I think Tannehill does like that tight end. I think he's going to be somebody he looks to more. But you're going to see a lot of those where it's Hopkins, Burks, Hopkins, and Nkonkwo, Hopkins. Like he's a guy. He's him. So
you can't have your leading receiver have 60 to 40 yards though, and that's a few times here.
Unless you have 7 guys at 60 to 40 yards.
Yeah, but that's not happening.
7 guys.
This isn't the Chiefs' offense. Come on. Yeah, this is tough. But I do think this has pieces. They have some. Dan Campbell obviously used the term, we're going to bite some kneecaps. I do believe the Titans have that same philosophy. They just don't say it.
Yeah. Also, they keep a these guys that I get some of my information with. They keep a number. I believe it's going to be a number that's like but it's pretty low, like between 1 and 17. And it's a net rest, and they have 11. So, like, it can be negative. Like, it just says, like, how many different weeks you have more rest than your opponent based on how far you travel. So, they have 11 games this season where they will have more rest than their opponent, and they have Derrick Henry. So, like, that's an interesting.
I told you about that stat back in the spring, how last year there was I'm not going to try and get into it because I don't quite remember. But last year was the first year in NFL history where there was like X amount of teams with this much plus net rest and this amount of teams with this much minus net rest. It was super weird. It was very one-sided for a lot of teams. So if you're telling me the Titans have plus 11, that's pretty damn good.
Also, the Titans this year, the furthest west they travel is the Houston Texans. So kind of like the Steelers had it, they don't travel a whole. Well, I'm sorry. That's the furthest west. They do have a London game, but both teams got to kind of.
Yeah.
But we'll get into the schedule here, I suppose.
Man, I might have to find some wins for this team because they're going to challenge Jacksonville.
So week 1, they are at the Saints. Now, no Alvin Kamara hurts, but like I said, Marshawn Lattimore fancies a physical receiver over a speeds receiver, i.e. Mike Evans and stuff. And so they do have a good defense against this team. But what do you have here? At Saints to open it up.
First off, tremendous game. Tremendous game. Love the idea of this game. I believe I gave it to the Saints, and I'm going to stick with it barely. Like the Saints here.
Dennis Allen, Derek Carr's first real game with the offense. It's tough for me. No Alvin Kamara. It's at the Saints. So I'll give it to the Saints too. They then host the Chargers. We did say that their defense was going to be better, but they were 32nd against the pass, and they're playing Justin Herbert.
God, I didn't want them to start 0-2.
They're going to, though, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I will say this. They have a bye week 7. Their first 6. Wow. First 6 is tough.
Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
So week 3, they're at the Cleveland Browns.
I'm giving them the W. I don't love it, but I'm giving them the W.
Well, I do have to say, remember, I'm giving them the W as well because the Browns play Monday night against the Steelers week 2. So
short week,
following week having the Titans coming in, I'm going to give them the Titans.
2 very physical teams in a row. Who else does the Browns play week 1? Do you have that in front of you? Or do you just knew the Steelers played them week 2?
I just know the Steelers play in week 2. I get it real quick.
It's fine. No, it's fine. I just love that I feel even better now.
Okay.
Physical
they host
team
the Bengals,
playing
They host Bengals, then they're at the Steelers Monday night.
Yeah, I'm good. Give me the Titans.
It's a lot of high emotion. Okay. Then week 4, they host the Cincinnati Bengals. By the way,
you're gonna shit on me.
Haven't got to the AFC North yet. The Bengals can still be the Bengals. They're taking a step back this year. That doesn't mean they won't win the division. I don't think they're going to be as powerhouse as they have been the last 2 years.
Titans ball control the shit out of them and win this game.
I do think the Titans are going to be able to score with them. I like Mike Vrabel better at home. I actually look them to rattle off 2 against the AFC North here. I think the Titans can beat the Bengals. And remember last time they played them 2 years ago, bitter taste in their mouth, 9 sacks, and Joe Burrow still beat them. They want this one.
Yeah, also, and look at the Titans' best opponents last year. They play them all tough. They get up for the good ones.
They're then at the Indianapolis Colts, giving them a dub.
Yeah, moving to 3-2 after dropping 2.
And then they're in London for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to give them a loss there.
Man, they always play the Ravens so tough.
Well, these are 2 of the last 2 teams that they're running different ways, but they're just going to pound the rock.
Give me the Titans.
I'm going to stick with the Ravens.
And Titans are 3-0 versus the North right now.
Well, so what I'm just going to say, good, they'll be 3-1 versus the North. That's helpful. Go Titans. So what I did want to say though is because it's so tough, and I definitively think they're going to beat the Colts. I'm comfortable after 6 games saying they'll be 3-3 going into their bye. I might not have where they get these wins right, but I think 3-3 is comfortable. You have them at 4-2.
Yeah, I'm at 4-2.
Okay. They hit their bye week 7. They come out of the bye, little redemption game against Artie Smith. They host the Atlanta Falcons. Win Mike Vrabel off the bye, I like it.
I gave this to the Falcons. I no longer have the Falcons winning that division. I've kind of turned my head. We'll make our final predictions and
we'll have that episode.
Yes. The last episode we do for the seasons are always our bold predictions pod. We'll make our final predictions, any tweaks we have. I no longer like the Falcons to win the division. I like the Saints too. Brad pointed some stuff out to me. Give me the Titans here to move to 5-2. Even if they're not 5-2, I love them at 4-3 here.
They now go on a tough 3-game road stretch, though. 3 games away from home. They started out Thursday night at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, traveling to Pittsburgh. They've already gone 3-0. Gosh. No, the Thursday benefits Pittsburgh. Otherwise, I'd take the Titans.
The Steelers, I believe,
coaching battle is really fun here.
So, okay, we have them losing there. What's the one team we've said over and over you just can't run on them?
Oh, Tampa.
They're then at Tampa. Long week of rest because Thursday into Sunday, but they're then at Tampa.
Yeah, but Tampa doesn't have any corners now, so they can throw on them.
It's a tough matchup. Traylon Burks, if he really has a year, this team becomes really scary on offense.
Yeah.
If Traylon Burks is a true number one or first round pick.
Yeah. But Tampa knows how to get across Sean Murphy bunting. Tampa's not going to lose every game. I do think they're bad, but
I'm giving it to Tampa. There's wins to be had.
Titans.
Okay. Third game, they stay in Florida and they play Jacksonville. I think I'm going to have these teams potentially split. It's at Jacksonville, so I'm going to have.
This one's at Jacksonville. I'll give them the loss here.
Okay.
I agree with you. I'm having them split as well at some point.
Now they have back-to-back home games, Panthers, Colts. Giving them 2 wins.
They're winning both.
I have them losing 3 straight and then winning 2 to bounce back. How many games have they played at this point? 12?
I have them currently at 8-4, 12 games.
I have them at 6-6.
Where's their bye?
It was
already.
It was after London. It was before the Falcons. So now they have a long week of rest, Monday Night Football in Miami. I think Miami's a better roster, but this could be Mike White if some of you don't believe that Tua will stay healthy. We're now late in the year, December 11th. I still like Miami to win this game.
Yeah, no, this is Miami. This is too much of a track meet for the Titans to hang with. You can be physical, but they're not winning a track meet.
Here we go, though. Host the Texans. I think that's a win.
I think I had them sweeping the Texans. I'm giving them a win here.
Non-conference road game. Seattle comes to town. I like them to beat Seattle.
No, they're losing to Seattle.
They're then at the Houston Texans. I think that's
they're beating the Texans.
And then
10-6, last game of the year.
Beauty. Jacksonville versus Tennessee, potentially for the division in Tennessee. I had them splitting home and home. I'm giving the Titans a 4-game win streak to end the year.
I'm going to have them lose it because what I just did, I wanted them to split, but what I just did is I basically put the Jacksonville Jaguars in almost maybe a must-win situation. And I just like the quarterback there.
Yeah,
I'll take Jackson. I'll take the prince that was promised on the road to get themselves there.
What'd you have at the end of it? What's your final?
I got them at 10-7. I still like them at 10-7 though.
It was totally different ways to get there, but I have them at 10-7.
Yeah, we were different on games here and there, which goes to tell you that we truly, between the two of us, we believe they can win almost any game. They can win and lose almost any game. They're a very unique team.
What's their over-under?
I'm probably high. You're probably high. I'm going to go 8.5.
It's 7.5.
Okay, first off, Vegas, take some of those damn wins from the Colts. Throw it on the Titans. What the hell?
Yeah, I think we're over on the Titans. I think is one of the most solid bets. 7.5. You're telling me Vrabel with this team can't have a winning record 9-8, 8-9?
Yeah. This feels very like Pittsburgh Steelers. Vrabel's going to drag them to a winning season.
Vrabel, he would suit up if they were 8-8 that last game of the year. Like
he would too.
Yeah, so 10-7 on the Titans.
Yeah, the one thing that'll hold the Titans back before we move on would be their offensive line. I don't even think it'd be Tannehill. I don't love Tannehill, but he's not terrible.
Yeah, and you look at the O-line, and they add Andre Dillard and Peter Skoronski both to the left side. One of the highest touted offensive linemen coming out of the draft, and a lot of those guys do hit. And Andre Dillard, who was a first-round pick, expected to start, but then Jordan Mailata for the Eagles came on and is a top 5 left tackle. Lane Johnson's on the other side. The guy just couldn't find a way in.
So this is a guy who could be a really good starter in the league. It's just he was on the team that has the best tackle pairing in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I think there's reason
here
to be optimistic there.
I am, but I do think if they were bad, it would be because of the offensive line.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of what happened to him last year, too, a little bit.
Yeah. Jags, you ready?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jacksonville finished the year 9-8, 4-2 in division, winners of 5 in a row. Their first playoff victory came in a game against the Chargers where they had to come from behind. And then, unfortunately, they dropped to the next game to the Chiefs, the eventual Super Bowl champs. So you never really know what their potential was. Losing to the Super Bowl champs is always like a good but bad thing in a way. Yeah, a lot of optimism about this team. Take away the ad drops.
Ad drops, we have, this might be one of the smallest ones. Ad drops, the ads for veterans, running back Dearness Johnson. We remember him popping off for the Browns a little bit. Yep. Offensive tackle Josh Wells and kicker Brandon McManus. That's actually a big pickup there at the kicker because this offense will move the ball. They should be getting a lot of points.
No, McManus can boot it.
Mm-hmm. And then they draft in the first round offensive tackle Anton Harris. They draft a tight end, a running back, linebacker, D-end, another D-end, and a safety/corner, so a versatile DB. I didn't say the names because a lot of these were third round and after, just guys they hope can make a difference on the team. Their departures are wide receiver Marvin Jones, but I will say it's worth noting on the ads, Calvin Ridley will be playing for them for the first time this year. He was suspended all last year, but they picked him up. Shout out to all you guys who drafted Calvin Ridley in the 10th round or later in fantasy and can now keep him going into this year. Good for you. They lose tight end Dan Arnold. Offensive tackle Jawan Taylor. Again, they drafted one in the first round. Defensive end Arden Key. Corner Shaq Griffin. That's kind of a big one. And kicker Riley Patterson. But as you mentioned, Brandon McManus takes over for that team. So for a team that was 28th against the pass last year to lose Shaq Griffin, area of concern there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jacksonville adding Calvin Ridley, I think at the trade deadline last year, it was kind of like one of those moves because Calvin couldn't play. Jacksonville was trending towards a playoff spot, but yet they were still thinking about next year, which I think is a sign of a very intelligent organization that's moving in the right direction. Trevor was tremendous. I mean, there was a lot of growth last year. Yeah, I just think that overall, a lot of nice pieces. Obviously, Trevor, Travis Etienne, Kirk was great last year. Zay Jones was great, and now they add Calvin Ridley to kind of complement those two, so those guys can kind of work beneath, and Calvin can kind of go deep. Evan Ingram, they just paid. They are going to be without Cam Robinson for the first couple of games of the season. He's suspended. I'm not sure how many games. I think it's 3 or something.
Yeah, I think it was 3 for gambling.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, they obviously invested in the pass rusher 2 years ago with the number 1 pick after Trevor. They got Trayvon Walker. Not a huge impact last year. I think he had 3.5 sacks. So, I mean, obviously they're looking to have that improved this year, but sometimes it takes pass rushers a minute. Hopefully he's not a bust. I mean, he's literally right today 22 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some growth there. So I think there's a lot to like. I like this coaching staff. I love the quarterback. Josh Allen's a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of because there wasn't any ad drops. You kind of just know what this team is. And the way they ended last year, and especially that comeback in the playoffs, they showed a lot of grit. Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence are a nice pairing going into another year together. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones combined for just over 1,900 yards. Now they're adding Calvin Ridley. From a 3 receiver, this is one of the receiving cores where Michael Pittman might not make it as a starting receiver, to Jeff's point earlier in the podcast. Evan Ingram for the Giants, dropping game icing catches for the Giants and having problems and not loving the situation. He goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars and turns into what he was supposed to be. Evan Ingram was fantastic last year. I believe he changed his number, went for over 700 yards and a couple tuds. So the fact that they have those four guys, they will be a traditional passing team. You know, receiving tight end, three receivers spread out. They're going to drop back. Their running backs would rather take draws or catch out of the backfield. And Trevor Lawrence, 25 tuds, only 8 picks. You know, he keeps his interceptions in the single digits. And this team's just going to be a point machine. Defensively, they got some big boys up front, but it is their 4 linebackers: Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd out of Utah, Foyesade Lucan, and Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker pumps those sacks up to at least 7, and this team defensively, that's where they're going to increase their pass defense if they do. It's going to be their rush. They have 2 linebackers who can cover and tackle. And on the back end, they don't have great guys. We'll see what Tyson Campbell can become, but they don't have really much to talk about in the back end. But they are still NFL players, so we'll see how it goes. They still have Clavion Chasen, I think is how you say his name, from LSU, so they even have a lot of rotation at the pass rush spot. So this team, I think, is comfortable in saying, look, we play in a weaker division. Go ahead and score 24 points. We're going to score 31, and they have the team to do it. They have the kicker to put up points. This will be a lot of drives that will end in points, whether it's 3, 6, 7, 8, whatever the case. They'll look to be opportunistic on defense, but that also helps the defense. I think that's what helps the Chiefs. A lot of times you look at, they have no names on defense. Well, guess what? They're young and fast, and they're not afraid to make a mistake because they know Patrick can get it back. I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is Patrick, but this team knows they can be aggressive and play with no fear because their quarterback can put up 35 or 40 points on any given day. Love the Jaguars, and I feel like their floor is 8 wins, and I'm not going to have them near that, I don't think. But, like, this team on their worst day is going to win 8 games. I think they're the top team in the division.
Yeah, I mean, I can't stress enough from what I've seen in that game against the Chargers, where Trevor Lawrence started the game with 4 picks. 4 picks. Like, you know how mentally defeated you have to be to throw 4 picks and come back and win? Like, you got to have balls of steel. I mean, truthfully, and leadership qualities of unknown people. I mean, truthfully, super impressed by what this team was able to do in the playoffs and throughout the year, to 9-8 and kind of squeak in and really find yourselves late. I think I had it up a second ago. They started the year really not great.
Yeah, they ended 6-1. So I have the schedule up right here. They start out with
Go ahead.
They lose to Washington, which is crazy at the beginning, but then they bounce back 24-0 against the Colts, and then 38-10 on the Chargers, destroy them. Then they lose to the Eagles, 2 games in division, Houston Colts, and
Both
then
bad teams.
Then they lose to the Giants. Then Denver beats them, and people are like, what's going on with the Jags? They beat the Raiders. People really don't look at that as crazy. And then they play the Chiefs and lose. They go into the bye at 3-7, and people are like, what is Trevor Lawrence? This team,
yeah, typical Jags team. They suck.
They're in shambles. They come out and they destroy the Ravens, or they beat the Ravens, but then get destroyed by the Lions. So they're 4-8, and at this point, everyone has written off the Jags, but the whole division's bad, and they're just saying, well, one of these AFC South teams got to make it. Then they beat the Titans, then the Cowboys, but then, like, even their last 3 wins, people will say going into this year, they're like, okay, they beat the Jets, who are awful, Texans, who are awful, and Titans, who played Josh Dobbs.
At that point, they were bad.
Yeah, so
that was a playoff game. That Titans game was a playoff game. The winner got in.
And I think people were still willing to write off the Jags because they thought that it was a weak schedule that they won towards the end. And I think when they beat Dallas in overtime, it was Dak Prescott throwing like a couple picks that game. But what I think really changed people's minds is what they did in the comeback versus the Chargers. But again, a lot of people around that you talk to think the Chargers are so overrated anyway. And then they play the Chiefs in a really good game. So I get the pushback a little bit if you want to say that they're not good enough. But one thing that's really nice is they played a total of 19 games, and Trevor Lawrence played all 19. And Travis Etienne was their leading rusher in like 17 of those games. So A lot of their guys are healthy, and let's not forget what Calvin Ridley was before he got suspended.
Yeah, lots to like.
Also, their schedule is
Let's start her off.
yeah. Remember, AFC South and NFC South are on here. So, Jaguars start off at Indianapolis. Dub.
Win.
They then host the Chiefs, who are on long rest after an opener. Again, this is a revenge spot for them. Knocked them out of the playoffs last year. But I like the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Good game, though. This is a nugget I didn't know if I wanted to point out before or after the schedule breakdown. I'll just do it before. Colin Cowherd mentioned this. The Jaguars will have a decided quarterback advantage in all but 4 of their games, and those games are all spread out throughout the schedule. They don't have to play a gauntlet of elite quarterbacks. This is one of those 4. They host the Kansas. By the way, also one little nugget. They're listed to have 10 home games and 7 away games this year. Both of their games in London were marked down as home games. So they have 10 home games and 7 road games. I believe it was a sacrifice they had. I've never heard this, but I believe it was a sacrifice they had to make to get London back-to-back weeks.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I like Jacksonville at home coming off an easy victory, not having to test themselves, and then Kansas City having to come to Jacksonville in that heat early in the year. I like Jacksonville to start 2-0.
I'm actually going to say Jacksonville, too, because it's their home opener, and it's the team that knocked them out of the postseason last year. And as much as we talk about the Jags defense, we'll get into it in a future pod, but the Chiefs wide receiver core, very young. Very young.
The Chiefs receiving core is what's going to hold me back. The battle of former Philadelphia Eagle coaches. Fun game.
By the way, this is the first of 5 straight home games.
Real quick, what's the is that Sunday night? Is that 4:25? What we got there?
Oh, that is 1 o'clock CBS.
Thank God New England plays Sunday night that week, actually, now that I think about it. So I'm going to be watching that one.
The Steelers are Monday night. So
we both got that game tuned in for sure.
Week 3, they host the Texans.
3-0.
Week 4, they're in London against the Falcons. Calvin Ridley revenge game, if you will.
Yeah, man, 4-0.
Now, here's their second elite quarterback in Josh Allen. But again, they have been in London for going on 2 weeks now. We could say it's an advantage. Are they homesick, this or that? But Buffalo, we know that the AFC East, all teams have a pretty hard gauntlet right off the cuff. They're going to be traveling to London against a Jacksonville team ready and waiting. I like Jacksonville 5-0.
Same, 5-0.
They come back to the States where they host in Jacksonville the Colts.
What an easy game for being off of jet lag, essentially. What an easy game. What time's that game? At 1 o'clock?
CBS, 1 o'clock.
Scheduling break right there. I'm giving them the dub. 6-0.
They are then on a short week at Thursday night at the Saints. I kind of like the Saints.
That is, that's a loss. This screams Saints win here.
They are then on a long week, but they are then at the Pittsburgh Steelers on the 29th or October 29th. But let me check something just real quick. Oh, never mind. I didn't know if the Steelers were coming off their bye. They are not coming off their bye. God, that's a good game.
It's a great game.
You said if their O-line was a problem.
Where's it at?
It's at Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers get a lot of their most difficult games in Acrisure.
Yeah. I'm going to go Pittsburgh here.
I am too. I got the Steelers winning a lot of games. Spoiler. Bye week, week 9. So they start off 6-0. Maybe 5-1 or 4-2. But either way, here we go. Bye week, week 9.
They needed it because they just dropped 2. So that's good.
Come out of the bye week and host the San Francisco 49ers. Non-conference. all the way across all the time zones off of a bye. I love the 49ers, but I think this is a great spot for the Jags.
Yeah, Jags got them in a nice spot. Yeah, we're taking the Jags here. I'm taking Jags.
Then they host the Tennessee Titans. I think I had the Titans splitting a home and home. So
yeah, I thought they played them later.
They play in week 18.
I gave the Jags both wins. In this context, it feels like it could be a Titans win, but I'm going to keep it with the Jags here. 8-2.
Yep. Okay. All right. I think it's a win. Oh wait, I think that's a win. At the Texans.
It's a win.
They then host the Bengals on Monday night. I like the Bengals there.
Yeah, I do
Tough
too.
game though.
I will say this. The Bengals are going to have a hell of a time stopping Trevor Lawrence and those receivers.
Well, vice versa too, I think. I think the Jags are I think this is a 42-38 banger on Monday night.
Yeah,
this is where everyone's tired on Tuesday because they couldn't turn this one off.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Then they follow that up on a short week. They go to the Cleveland Browns. I think they drop it here.
When is this game?
Sunday, 1:00.
What's the date?
Oh, December 10th.
Yeah, it's going to be cold as shit. I'm giving this to the Browns.
They then come back home for their third straight AFC North opponent, and they host the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday night. I like the Ravens. I think they're going to take 3 straight losses here.
Yeah, this is tough. I like the Ravens.
I think the AFC North sweeps the Jags. I guess that's what I'm getting out of this. I think the AFC North sweeps the Jags.
Which is weird because I gave the Titans a 3-1 out of them. That's wild. But no, I think I tend to agree here. Because of where they line up. It just got it. Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. I still have them at 9-5. They're still feeling great about themselves.
We're lockstep here at 9-5.
Yeah.
But the Titans are playing their ass off, watching every game, hoping that they close that gap. But for you, they're probably pretty similar right now. They then Sunday, December 24th, go back to Florida, but they're at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like the wide receivers.
They're beating Tampa.
I think so too. They then host the Panthers.
They're beating the Panthers.
And then they're at the Tennessee Titans, where I said I would split the home and home. But remember, my game, I had the Titans at 9 wins, winning this one to go to 10. Jags are already at 11 for me. I have them at 11-6.
12-5.
Which at the grand scheme of things, I think adding Calvin Ridley, a whole offseason with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and where they're at, adding 2 or 3 more wins doesn't seem crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when both the Colts and Texans in their division have rookie head coach, rookie quarterback. I have them sweeping both of them. That's almost 4 wins just on coach quarterback advantage there in the NFL. So
the only thing I don't love that I did, and I don't remember what you did, but what I don't love that I did this. Would you agree with me that their 4 hardest games are Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, Niners?
You could argue because of quarterbacks. You could put the Ravens in that mix as well and say that's their 5 toughest.
Okay, fine. I have them going 3-2, which means they're better than those other 5 teams, and I don't necessarily love that because I don't think they're better.
Well, you got to think Chiefs earlier in the year. Home
I know
opener,
that's why I gave them that one.
Right.
And I gave them the win over the Bills in London.
Like it's not just like these are normal week games where we're just like they're going to, like if it was week 4 and they just back-to-back home game and the Bills come to town, I could see the Bills taking it. Like I could still see the Bills beating them in London. But like as a prediction, like with them being in London back-to-back weeks, I just think that's a real tough ask of the Bills to go in there and get a win. And when I was talking about
Bills and Jags play in London when the Jags were horrible and they beat them like 9-6 with Urban Meyer. Do you remember that game?
I don't. But
What I will say is Patrick Mahomes week 2, Josh Allen week 5, Joe Burrow week 13, and Lamar Jackson week 15. Outside of that, it's Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Desmond Ridder, Anthony Richardson, Derek Carr, Kenny Pickett, Brock Purdy, Ryan Tannehill, CJ Stroud. I mean, we'll see what Deshaun Watson is, I suppose. Baker, Bryce Young, Ryan Tannehill. Like, when you're talking about having Trevor Lawrence, even if Deshaun Watson is really good this year, a lot of people would still take Trevor over Deshaun. So in terms of Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, maybe not even Lamar to some people, but Joe Burrow, they will have the decided quarterback advantage in 75 to 80% of their games this year.
Yeah.
And Doug Peterson's a little underrated as a coach.
He's massively underrated.
He did call the Philly.
People forget that he's the coach of the Eagles that beat the Patriots with Nick Foles. Dude can coach. Not that Philadelphia made the wrong choice firing him, because obviously I think they have something there with Nick Sirianni. I don't love Nick Sirianni, but he's at least earned for me to not talk shit about him. I mean, he's right there.
Doug Peterson bought Carson Wentz 3 more contracts on blind faith that he was who he was with Doug Peterson.
That's so true.
I mean, think about how many years I was still clinging on to Carson Wentz because of what he did with Doug Peterson 11-0.
There's one more person that I think, and I didn't really think about this. Jason McIntyre, he's the co-host of The Herd. Okay. He actually brought this up. He thinks Frank Reich is actually living off his coattails. Frank Reich's had 2 head coaching jobs, not 1, but 2. And he was bad in Indianapolis. Obviously, he got rehired in with the Panthers. If he's bad with the Panthers, like Doug Peterson got this dude hired. I mean, who knows? There's something there.
You have them 12-5. I have them 11-6. What do you think is their over under?
$10-5.
Or this is the first
10.5. 10.5. Sorry.
First division you are wrong on all 4 guesses, but they're at 9.5.
They were a 9-win team last year, and we don't think they're better.
Yeah, exactly.
But Vegas doesn't think they're better.
Suppose not.
Well, that's because they're giving way too many damn wins to the Colts.
But remember, for me, if it's at 9.5, I have them beating the Chiefs and Bills. Let's say those 2 games go the other way, 9-win team. So it's like, I can't say it's crazy. It's not one of the ones that I'm like ultimately confident in. But
I wouldn't bet it, but I do like the Jags at 12 wins.
The way the division shakes out for you is Jags at 12-5, Titans at 10-7, Texans 5-12, Colts 1-16.
And I
have Jags 11-6, Titans 10-7, Texans 6-11, Colts 2-15. By the way, the Jaguars to win the division are -155. So in terms of your best odds, the Titans at +310, if you think they can snatch it from the Jaguars with Vrabel and Tannehill and company, that would probably be the best money bet. I do always ask.
For the poll?
Oh yeah,
Let's do the poll first. Let's do the poll first. Okay, we had 26 votes. This, weirdly enough, this may be our largest poll we've ever had.
People aren't scared to be wrong, so it's the favoritist one, so people are just easy to click Jags and look right, you know?
You ain't wrong. How many votes do you think the Colts have?
26 votes. Colts, there has to be one Colt fan who listens, maybe one.
They have 1 vote.
Oh, who is it?
It's Connor Eli. He follows the page. He's active, but I'm not sure who he is.
I don't know who his team is.
Thanks for listening, Connor, if you're listening.
Come
How many do you think the Titans have?
4.
They have 2.
One of them's Tyler Kemp, got to be.
It is. How'd you know?
Big Titans fan. Big Titans fan.
Is he really?
Biggest Titans fan I know, actually. 100%.
I know one diehard Titans fan. I'm not sure if he listens. Tyler, if you listen, thanks for listening, buddy. How many for the Texans? I almost said it.
1.
1. Christian Myers. And then the Jags finish up with 22 votes. Obviously, like you said, it's easy to just, Jags. So, I don't think there's any. I'm going to look real quick for questions. It says there's a comment, but I can't see it. I don't know. Maybe there's not a comment, or I'm blocked. Somebody blocked me. Who knows?
Ranking the division based on just head coach, quarterback. Bottom 2 are interchangeable, but I went with Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson in 4th.
Personally, I think that's an easy choice. I agree.
D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud 3.
Agree.
Vrabel Tannehill 2, and Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence 1.
Agree.
And that's
agree.
And that's how our division, forget the wins, but that's how the order shakes out for us. I honestly think one of the fun things, because it's always plus money, and I don't have the odds in front of me, and I don't know if I could find it fast enough on the computer, but a lot of times you can go to divisions and you can bet on what's called exact order. And I think Jags, Titans, Texans, Colts would be a good one to be like how they pan out in terms of the orders.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah. Well, I think we gave this, we're now in 35 minutes in. I think we had a lot of meat on the bone for this division that a lot of people probably don't look highly on, but we are very excited about the AFC, and it's absolutely fire from here on out. Obviously, we're closing with the North and the East. Which way we finish, that'll be determined. But our 2 favorite divisions, obviously, because our team's playing them. But the AFC West is next. Be ready for that one. Be on the lookout. You may get it today. You may get it tomorrow. You may get it next week, next month. Who knows? So here we are, just talking football, moving along.
Colts to win exactly 1 game is plus 3,500.
Gosh.
If you want to have that.
I might.
Colts to win 0 is plus 14,000. So toss a 10-piece on that for a stimulus check. Go ahead.
Why not, baby? Why not? Oh goodness. Well, anything else you got to add?
No. I guess I haven't been putting this on here, but I can look up the odds for teams to make or miss the playoffs if you're interested in any team that we've done so far since I got it up here.
Yeah, go ahead.
What teams you want to hear maybe that we've done?
To make or miss?
Mm-hmm.
What is the odds that the Saints make it?
That the Saints make it?
Yeah.
Yes is minus 188.
Yeah, that seems right.
Pretty good price, though, because even if it's a wild card, Saints are making the playoffs.
2 teams that we obviously disagreed with probably more than any team on this entire thing. Give me the Vikings and the Packers again. I think we maybe have talked about it, but what are the Vikings to make and miss?
The Minnesota Vikings.
You have them missing. I have them making, and then vice versa with the Packers.
Making the playoffs is minus 106. Not making it is minus 114. So they're more likely to miss than make due to Vegas, but neither of them are great odds.
Let's say you're not making money, really.
The Packers to make it plus 160, to miss minus 210. I may dabble on the plus 160 for Packers to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Interesting.
Let's look at the Patriots.
Don't tell me. Save it. Don't tell me, because it's probably fucking disrespectful. So.
I have both of our teams up right now, just looking at them both.
I did look. You guys have better odds to win the Super Bowl than we do. I know I did see that.
Really?
Yeah. It's not by much.
I thought last time I looked to win the Super Bowl, I thought we had the exact same.
You guys were plus 500 less. We were plus 500 more.
So last time I looked, we were both plus 5,000. It's swung.
We're not.
It's swung 500 both ways. We're plus 4,500. You're plus 5,500.
Which is hilarious to me.
So
whatever.
The Steelers have the same Super Bowl odds as the Broncos and Giants, and then the next group is you guys and the Falcons are at plus 5,500.
Have I told you what I absolutely love as a parlay this year, and I'm just wondering how much I want to put on it.
Let's hear it.
A Bengals Cowboys Super Bowl.
Oh, like betting the matchup?
Yeah, it's plus 44.50. So $50 would literally win me $900. I'm sorry, $20 would win me $900. Like it feels worth it to me. I really like that matchup. I think there's some value there. So
yeah, you could even go a step further, and when you get really in there, you can bet the exact outcome. So you could go Bengals over Cowboys or Cowboys over Bengals. Take it one step further.
Yeah, I could be greedy, I guess.
Well, that's the whole point of betting, is to get greedy, eh?
I would love to know how. I feel like a lot of these pods, Brad and I just start talking betting odds to close out the show. And if you guys are listening, you made it this far. First off, thank you. But if there's an odd that you want to hear, or if there's certain things you want us to dabble into, if you're like, hey, what bets do you guys like? Let us know. We'd love to hear about them. We're always listening to other things. We have some plans for this season, so we're excited.
Yeah, I have it in front of me. Last win this team for the Colts is plus 1,800.
That feels like a massive great bet. Like just
with all their home games and how we had it, the last remaining undefeated team, the Jaguars, are plus 2,100, and we had them at like 7-0 before they got a loss.
yeah.
They don't have it for every team, and I'm not sure why. Some move, some don't, but like they have like season specials, and then you can click on certain teams. So like the Jacksonville Jaguars, some of the ones they have, Jacksonville Jaguars to score one or more touchdowns in every single game they play, minus 135.
It's not even a good value bet.
The Jaguars to sweep the Titans is minus 105.
Jeez.
If you go down to, dude, this one's actually kind of crazy. Their highest odd one, and this will be the last one I say, so we'll just be done with it. But the Jacksonville Jaguars to score one or more rushing touchdowns in every single NFL game they play this year. So all 17 games, they have to get one rushing touchdown, plus 7,000.
They're a passing team, so that's not great.
Right.
It's a great value bet if you think they're going to score a shit ton.
10 for 700 on them to get a rushing touchdown every game.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Wow. If Mac Jones throws for 400 yards in any game, just one, plus 120.
Yeah. The Steelers to sweep the AFC North, plus 11,000. There's all sorts of goofy stuff on here.
Dude, there's so many great odds for the Patriots to do things that I think they could actually do. God, I might be broke just trying to bet the Patriots, and hopefully it pays out.
But they got TJ Watt to record 15 or more sacks. It's plus 175.
Feels like a good bet.
Yeah, first 4 games he'll probably
if he plays. Say if he plays. All right, well, I think that's it.
Does sound like it's it.
We're out. Real talk.
All right. Later, guys. Real talk.